Alrighty, guys. So jumping off of that, report that we just talked about casting the young X-Men in the future of the MCU. And speaking of the future of the MCU, this same report from Jeff Snyder, and again, I think it was interesting and relevant enough to separate out into a separate segment, because I think there is actually a lot more to talk about here, which we touched on in the previous segment, talking about Kitty Pryde and Julia Butters. But there is another detail, another little nugget here in this Jeff Snyder report, and it's about the release date of the upcoming X-Men reboot. So just to kind of catch people up to speed, if you guys weren't aware, the X-Men used to belong to a completely separate studio, 20th Century Fox. Then in 2019, Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and all of a sudden the X-Men were back under Marvel's banner. That being said, Kevin Feige at the time was asked about, when are the X-Men coming? And he was like, no, we have a plan. We're going to stick to our plan. And we usually have it mapped out maybe about 5 years in advance. So you're not going to see the X-Men or the mutants start to pop up until about 5 years later. 5 years later, and also given a pandemic and given a writers and actors strike, we are starting to see mutants, right? We saw Charles Xavier in Doctor Strange 2, but he wasn't really, he wasn't really a mutant, but we saw Kamala Khan be a mutant in 2022's Ms. Marvel. So again, we're starting to see the mutants show up here and there, and Feige has indicated that mutants will be showing up in the 2025 films in various places in Captain America, Thunderbolt, or Fantastic Four, or maybe all of them. So anyways, now we're heading full steam ahead, and the assumption for a while, though nobody has explicitly said it, I don't think, is that the phase or the saga after the multiverse saga, which is what we're in right now, is going to be mutant-centric. Whether it's called the mutant saga or not, it's going to be very, very mutant-centric. That being said, I think it would have come as a shock to all of us before this report came out to think that the X-Men film might be coming out 2 months after Avengers Secret Wars. That feels very quick. That is making a statement of starting out the next saga of the MCU. Not even waiting at all. Not even waiting at all. So, according to this report from Jeff Snyder, I'm going to read from this article here. This article says, quote, additionally, he reports, he being Jeff Snyder, that X-Men is expected to start filming in 2026, with Marvel Studios planning for a late 2027 release, likely slotting the eagerly awaited MCU entry for that already reserved MCU date for November 5th, 2027, although there's always a possibility it could be moved up to the July 23rd, 2027 date. So that's, it seems like it's more likely that it's going to be in the November slot, according to this report. But, like I said at the beginning, it's feasible, it's possible if this film, if it films in 2026, that this movie could be coming out in July 2027, which means it will be the very next movie after the multiverse saga, presumably. I mean, maybe they're like, oh, this is the epilogue to the multiverse saga, which is a weird thing to say. I don't know why you would say that. But anyways, so we talked about this in the previous segment, but I wanted to reiterate this because there was also a rumor going around, and this one I classify just as pure rumor, that the Russo brothers were going to be the ones to direct the X-Men. And like I said in the previous segment, those two things cannot be true. Oftentimes, two things can be true together, which most people don't seem to want to believe because, they want to, make the world into absolutes, and it's not always like that. It's actually very complicated usually. But these two things cannot be true at the same time. The Russos cannot be directing the X-Men and having the X-Men come out in 2027. It is just like 99.99999% with certainty that I say that, because if for those of you who know just any other movie production, it is all-consuming for directors. They work on these movies for years and years and years and years. Not to mention, not only are the Russos doing Secret Wars, they're doing Doomsday and Secret Wars. Where in the world are you going to find time to release another film that's coming out? Let's give it a generous, the benefit of the doubt. Let's say 6 months later or 2 months later than Avengers Secret Wars. It's not happening. So, again, I maintain that, again, Jeff Snyder, although he is right a lot of the time, he also can be wrong. He also can get things wrong. So it's possible, right? It's possible that he is wrong and that X-Men won't be coming out until 2028 or 2029, in which case, I guess, if the Russos wanted to really dive in again and direct another crazy ensemble film after directing, Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, sure, go for it. But if it's coming out in 2027, that can't be true. The other thing I wanted to talk about here, because yes, it's soon, but if they're casting and if they're moving forward and if they have a vision, go for it, do what you want. But the other thing I wanted to talk about actually were the other dates that were related to this, because we have, those flags that the MCU likes to plant, right? Those untitled release dates. And I want to go over them now in light of this X-Men news and assume that X-Men is going to fill one of the 2027 release dates and see what the other films that we have been quote unquote, promised, confirmed, right? And see where they might fit into all of this. So let's look at those other release dates. So we have one in July 23rd, 2027. We have one November 5th, 2027. Obviously, Avengers Secret Wars is coming out, by the way, in May of 2027. We also have missing release dates for, I believe, February 13th, 2026 and November 6th, 2026. So we have two other release dates, or I guess three other release dates before the end of Secret Wars, and then we have two. Actually, do we have a February 2027? No, I don't think so. So we have May 2027, but I guess we don't have a February 2027 date for now. Although, it's possible that they could plant that flag if they really wanted to. But anyway, so just going back over the timeline here. So this February 2025, Captain America Brave New World. May 2025, Thunderbolts. And then July 2025, Fantastic Four First Steps. Then February 2026, because I think that November date has been vacated for now, for November 2025. So February 2026, we don't know. And then May 2026 is going to be Avengers Doomsday for now. July 2026 also, it's not listed on this Wikipedia page because it's not Marvel Studios, but it is Spider-Man 4 apparently for now. And then we have a November 2026 date, and then that goes right into Secret Wars in May 2027. And then also we just talked about that there were two release dates, July 2027 and November 2027. We also have release dates for 2028, by the way, February, May, and November. So let's fill some of those out, right? First of all, we have a missing one before Doomsday, February 2026. What could that one be? The assumption is it has to be Blade, right? Because Blade is the only film that seems like it is actually undergoing active production, even though that active production has turned into just a nightmare. But, it has to be Blade, right? Because even if Doctor Strange 3 gets up and running right now, it's a stretch to say it's going to make February 2026. It's still a stretch to say Blade is going to make February 2026. Unless Marvel is filming a secret movie, I have to assume it's Blade. So until further notice, because again, if cameras get rolling on Blade in summer, they could make that February date, I think. I don't know. Maybe they just cancel it outright. So that's also a possibility. But for now, I'm going to say we go Fantastic Four in July, and then I think we go Blade in February 2026. Then we get Avengers Doomsday 2026, May 2026, and then we have a gap until November 2026. I would assume November 2026, also Spider-Man 4, in July 2026. I would assume, though, November 2026 is going to be Doctor Strange 3. That makes the most sense to me, just in Battle World or whatever happens between Doomsday and Secret Wars. So I would assume November 2026 is going to be Doctor Strange 3. Makes the most sense to me. Then we get a break, and then we go into Avengers Secret Wars in 2027 May, and then we get to July, November. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, because I think it makes some sense that, you want the X-Men to take up the more summer release date. November is good too, but I think you'd want the X-Men to take up that summer release date. So let's just say X-Men is July 2027. November 2027 has to be Shang-Chi 2, right? Because, my goodness, guys, this film, I mean, it could be Black Panther. I would assume Black Panther 3 and Shang-Chi 2 are going to flip-flop between that February 2028 and November 2027 date, but it has to be coming, right? It has to be coming. So I would hope Shang-Chi 2 is in November 2027, Black Panther 3 February 2028, because, the first Black Panther made tons of money in February, so we'll see. And then we get May, and we get November of 2028, and who knows, right? We still have Armor Wars at some point, which we talked about earlier on in the podcast, and we have tons of other films. We could have an X-Force film, we could have New Mutants again, all these different things, Deadpool and Wolverine 2, or Deadpool 4, whatever you're going to call it. So again, lots of different possibilities. I just wanted to do this. I just wanted to, it's a little thought exercise, because I think that once you put that X-Men film in 2027, all of a sudden, the schedule starts to fill up. But guys, what do you think about the fact that X-Men is apparently coming really soon? I mean, yes, in 2 years, but still, quote unquote, really, really soon. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.